DOPMR stands for the Department of Defense Medical Examination Review Board. They do all the medicals for all the academies, for all the young men and women that are joining our military services. And if any of you play sports, I can tell you it's not a typical sports physical. It's more extensive. They will do a medical examination and an eye examination. And DOPMR will send you a letter, because they contract with local doctors depending on your zip code. Do not miss that date for that appointment. And what may happen is, what you're hoping for is that the DOPMR will come back in 2 to 3 weeks from your medical examination and your file will say qualified. That's the key one. Because if they rate you disqualified, they will send you a letter, DOPMR will, telling you why you are disqualified. And it can be because you had asthma at a certain age, you were taking certain medication, you indicated something in your file, like you had curvature of the spine. And so what they will do is they'll rate your file from disqualified to remedial till they resolve that. But that can take 30 to 60 to 90 days as we're moving towards the end of 2011. The other thing you will be required to do is go to one of your coaches at school who has a degree in physical education. You will take what we call a candidate fitness assessment. It's a 6-event test and it's sequenced in time. The first event is you're on your knees at a line and you will throw a basketball overhand for distance. For fellows, the average is 65 feet. For young ladies, it's about 41 feet. You cannot fall forward and touch the ground before the ball hits the ground. Trust me, it is not as easy as you think. I took it in 1963 when I applied to West Point. I took it in 1964, and I took it as a cadet probably in my first 2 years at the academy. So that test has been around. The CFA will test your strength, your agility, and your endurance. Oh, by the way, all the academies use that same test. The second event after a 2-minute break is you will go over and do pull-ups. For males and females, the pull-ups means the back of your hand is facing your face, not like this. And what you'll do is you'll mount the bar and you'll hang. Once you're at a dead hang, if I administer the test like I did on Monday to a college freshman, I will tell him go. When his chin is above the bar parallel, I'll say 1. He drops until his elbows are locked, I will say go. The average for males is 9. The average for females is 3. If as a female candidate you cannot do 1 pull-up, then what we'll have you do is mount the bar with your chin above the bar, and I will hit my stopwatch and see how long you can hold yourself in that position. The average time is 19 seconds. I've seen some young ladies do 31. For your young ladies, if you're applying, try to do at least 1 pull-up. That's a lot better than just hanging up there. You'll have a 2-minute break. Then you will do a 40-yard shuttle run in 10-yard increments. 10 yards down, and back. You'll have a 1-minute break and you get to do that test again, and we will take the best time. After that, you will do what we call bent leg sit-ups. If I administer the test, I will hold the candidate's feet. You cross your arms and put your fingers on your chest, and when you come up, you can extend your elbows to touch between your mid-thigh and your knee. For the fellows, the average is about 75, and I think for young ladies it's somewhere in the 60s. And you have to come back down to what we call a supine position. That means your full back is on the ground, your head is on the ground, you come back up. You have 2 minutes to do as many as you can. You have a 2-minute break and you'll do push-ups. In the front leaning rest position, young ladies, you will not do it from your knees, you'll do it from your toes and your hands, just like the guys. You do as many as you can in 2 minutes, and the upper arm has to be parallel to the ground when you go down, and you have to come to a locked elbow position. and you do as many as you can in 2 minutes. Then you have about an 8-minute break to do the mile. So when I ministered it last year to 2 college freshmen, I told both of them I did it on 2 different days. And of course, obviously, I have a great beard. I got wrinkles, and I said, after they did a whole lot of sit-ups, I said, on the 3rd lap of on the quarter-mile track, your thighs are going to feel like jelly. And I could see it in their eyes, and they're saying, "What do you know, old man?" Well, this old man knows a lot, because my last 13 years in the Army, our PT test twice a year was sit-ups, push-ups, and a 2-mile run. So I know what happens to your thighs, because when you do those sit-ups, what you're using is your thigh muscles. And so, I did this with these 2 guys on 2 different days, and when they finally got done where they could talk, because the one guy ran the mile in 5:57, the average is 7:23. The other fellow did it in 5:35. Once they could breathe and talk again, the first thing they said, "You were right." And I won't tell you what I thought in my head, but yes, I knew about it. So those are the qualifications. So if I took an administrative form and I put it up here, it's broken. We grade it 3 different ways to get to 100%. Your academics represent 60% of your admissions qualification. That's the courses you took, the grades you took, and your SAT or ACT scores. 30% is based on your athletics participation, your extracurricular activities, and your school official evaluations. So I joke a little bit with the candidates and say, when you go talk to your teacher, make them a batch of brownies so that they'll complete the file and write up nice things for you. So that gets you to 90%. The last 10% is the candidate fitness assessment. Now, I mentioned on the medical that if you have a remedial, and it can take 30, 60 to 90 days, and I indicated the clock is ticking. What happens is, actually, we're just finishing August, and back at West Point, they're already stacking files up for candidates that they want to present before the admissions board in September. And what they're looking at is to recognize those candidates that they think are qualified. And a lot of young candidates already have their files done, and others are pretty well along the way. What they're looking to is to identify candidates, because we do a rolling wave admissions, to issue what we call a letter of assurance. So again, I use a gentleman in the orange shirt. Your SATs are up in the high 60s, low 600s, low 700s. You played varsity sports. You're a class president. You had a lot of good stuff, and your teachers said nice things about you. So we issued you a letter of assurance, and what it says, basically, if you complete your file by a certain date, which is in the letter, usually 60 days, 45 to 60 days, and you are qualified, plus you get a nomination, we will extend you an offer for admission. All you have to do is be nominated. You do not have to be in a principal position. And so I call it get home free pass. But you have to be qualified. Now, I verbally described that admission forms of all the things that go into it. They actually get graded. And I'll give you round numbers. Around June, July, the cutoff score that your file has to make is, let's say, 5,500 points. As we move through September, into October, into November, December, that cutoff score keeps getting higher because we're filling the class. And therefore, since we're picking nationwide, we're going to raise the bar to get those candidates that have higher scores and are better qualified. So what we tell candidates is try to get your file done as soon as you can. It's to your advantage. And if you become qualified and you don't get a letter of assurance, you'll go on the national waiting list. And you'll go there by your file score. And so you may get picked, you may not. Like the gentleman I said got an offer a week and a half before. He was pretty high up on the national waiting list. The other thing is I find that a lot of young Asian men and women, young men and women, are in martial arts. That doesn't show up in high school sports, but if you have a black belt, say in Taekwondo, and you have a first degree or a second degree or third degree black belt, when I find out you have it, I tell the candidate to scan it, send it into Major Dermanowski back at West Point. It goes into your file, and it's equivalent to getting a varsity letter. And so what we're looking at in the admissions process is academics. We're looking at a well-rounded candidate as high school that shows leadership potential, of volunteer work, involved in their athletic. Because in any of the branches of the service that you go into, and I'll pick specifically the Army, and in Annapolis, if you're selected to go in the Marine Corps and the Army are equivalent. There's a lot of physical demands on you within the military. So that gives you the picture of the admissions process. I think I've covered everything that you need to know about. It's very competitive, so let me give you some numbers. Class of 2014, 1,373 cadets were accepted into the Corps. Class of 2015, which reported on 27 June this year, was 1,247. The class of 2016, which will enter next June, towards the end of June, it will be 1,200. The classes will be smaller. The only competition you have in Southern California is within your district to get a nomination. Then you're competing nationwide. So you're competing with the United States and some Virgin Islands and several others like that. We do have minorities. The three minorities classifications are blacks, Hispanics, and Pacific Island ethnicity. Asians are not considered a minority. Just so some people think that that may happen, but that's not true. I will tell you it's competitive, but the rewards are great. As a cadet, you're going to learn leadership. We're a premier school for teaching leadership. You will be put in positions as a plebe, a freshman, you learn to take orders. As a sophomore, they now call themselves yucks. We were called yearlings. You'll be a team leader responsible for a plebe, reporting to a junior, or a cow as they're called, who's your squad leader. And then as a senior or a firstie, you'll be in a company command position, platoon leader, platoon sergeant. We also have, I mentioned our day or reception day. That's the day all new cadets report into West Point. And they pick it by the time you report is based on social security number. Don't ask me how they do it. But in any case, they will tell, again, orange shirt, you're fortunate you have to be there at 6 a.m. because at 6:15 you'll be told you have 1 minute to say goodbye to mom and dad and if your girlfriend's there, and then the upperclassmen drag you off. Okay? Moms and dads, if your sons or daughters get in, I recommend you go to our day so that you can see your son or daughter take their oath as a cadet on Trophy Point or on the plane. I still have the pictures from 1 July '66 that my father took. But you parents, you'll be given tours of the academy. They will tell you what's happening to your son and daughter as they go around getting their hair cut, learning how to march, how to put a uniform on, and getting a bunch of equipment and figuring out, what am I doing here the first day? But during those first 7 weeks, they'll learn to march. They'll be taking a lot of hikes up in the mountains at West Point. They're not quite as high as out here, but they have a similar temperature up in the 90s, but what they also have is humidity. And I can tell you when it's 98 degrees out and 96% humidity, it's worse than out here. And I grew up in the Midwest, so it was a lot easier for me, but I know the California guys had a tough time. But you'll learn a lot there, and then you'll be accepted into the Corps mid-August, and you'll start academics in the last 2 weeks of the year. Like I said, you'll take about 18 to 20 credit hours, plus intramurals twice a week, plus drill and ceremony, plus your company duties, plus studying. And you will spend a lot of time studying. The class environment at the academy, from when I went there, it's still the same. It's usually one professor to 15 to 18 cadets per class. So you have a really good interaction with the professor. They've changed a lot from when I was there. When I was a cadet, it was sink or swim. You were on your own. I would never have thought calling a professor at home asking for help. They can now do that. And I think it's beneficial. What we also do is we've given the yearlings or yucks leadership responsibilities. We didn't have that as a cadet. When I went there, there was one major, Master of Science in Engineering. And I figured out about October of my plebe year, as I was standing in upperclassmen's rooms before dinner or being hazed and things like that, I could look at the books on the shelf and say, oh, he's a sophomore, I'm going to be taking economics next year. Or I'd hear him at the meal tables. Now we have 45 majors that you can select from. You'll pick your major in the fall of your second year at the academy. You'll pick your branch in the fall of your senior year, but that'll be based on your general order of merit. You'll put down your 3 choices, and then you go into Eisenhower Hall in January, and they'll hand you a sealed envelope, and you open it and hope you got your first choice. I had a cadet support me last fall for an academy day, and when he and I were exchanging emails, he told me his branch selections, his first, second, and third, and when he got out here, I asked him, did you get your first choice? And he says, no, I got my second. So I know that general order of merit is still there. That's based on your academic grades, on your PT test scores, because you'll be taking PT tests, and on leadership scores. So there's a lot of involvement there. And the last thing I think the academy that's done is good since I've been there is bringing females into the Corps. And what we try to do is each year they'll look at the profile of the Army by ethnicity and gender. And what they try to do at the academy is to bring in the equivalent percentage for the class so that we're graduating 4 years later on equivalent profile. Our success rate on graduation is 80%. That's a lot higher than a lot of colleges. By and large, you will finish your education in 4 years. If you have trouble academically, you may graduate instead of June, you'll graduate in December, or they can turn you back 1 full year and you'll graduate a year later. So, because there's an investment in your education. I would also caution you, young men and women, if you're applying and you're in new cadet barracks, you're going to find it's tough. It's designed to be tough. If you want it bad enough, you'll suck it up and do it. It's mind over matter. When I was in Ranger School, the instructors would say, Rangers, it's mind over matter. I don't mind and you don't matter. But actually it is. It's mind over matter. I was interviewed a fellow last night, and I talked to him because he's cross country. He understood mind over matter physically. You can talk yourself into failing. You just got to, persevere with the determination. I can tell you as a new cadet, they'd march us in the central area and they would offer, any of you new cadets want to resign, and once in a while during each week, 1 or 2 guys would walk forward and I'd just stand there and say, how can you do that? It's taken me 3 years to get in here. Why would you want to do that? But I also knew since I was about 8 years old that I wanted to go to the academy. And my dad supported that. In the military, let me finish. At the end of yearly year, if you find the academy isn't what you want to do, resign. Because just before you start your junior year, you'll take a reaffirmation oath. If a week later you decide, gee, I should have resigned 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to resign now. Congratulations, you're in the Army. Because you're going to pay back the amount of money Uncle Sam's paid for your education. Once you graduate, you will serve for 5 years on active duty, and then if you elect to resign, you'll have 3 years of inactive ready reserve. If you don't elect to resign, you just report the work and keep on going. The Army is a job, I tell the young cadets, candidates, just like anywhere else. You're going to have good bosses and you're going to have bad bosses. And you're going to have good jobs and you're going to have bad jobs. It's what you make out of those bad jobs that tells your character. So, fellow back there in the blue shirt, his hair is pretty short. It's not quite short enough. Yeah, I'm looking at you. We shaved a little closer. For the first 2 or 3 days, all the guys look like that. The young ladies have their hair cut short, and they're all bobbing around. I don't care that you're a scholar. I don't care that you're a team captain. You won records in sports and all that. You're all equivalent. After about the third day, the squad leader and assistant squad leader can now begin to figure out, oh, the guy in the blue shirt, he's not high maintenance. I'll just keep pressure on him just to make sure he knows this isn't an easy ride. But I got this other gal or guy over here, they're high maintenance. They can't get the uniform on right, they come out late, it takes a lot of time. What you're doing is you're establishing and you're showing that squad leader, I'm here and I'm determined. And you can identify, trust me. You'll find that same thing when you get into the military. So I've probably given you a little bit more, but I want to give you the idea. So what happens once you get out of the Army? A lot of young men and women get out at 5 years, a lot get out before 10 years because that's a major decision point. You can serve your country in other ways. I would ask the question today, which two West Point graduates were generals in the Army and presidents of the United States? One was in the 1800s, one was in the 1900s. So I'll give you go ahead. Ulysses S. Grant, that's right, the Civil War. Eisenhower. Ulysses S. Grant was Abraham Lincoln's favorite general. And Dwight D. Eisenhower is the Supreme Allied Commander for the Normandy invasion in World War II. And oh, by the way, he also planned the invasion for North Africa and oversaw that. And he planned the invasion for Italy and Sicily, but he didn't oversee that. That's my historian side, I'm sorry. Also, the CEO of 7-Eleven is a West Point grad, just so you're aware. We have lawyers, we have astronauts, senators, representatives. When I retired, I worked for the defense industry, and we developed a system that both the Marine Corps and the Army are using extensively. It's a tactical internet with touchscreen computers in the vehicles, on all types of vehicles, and you can see vehicles move around the battlefield. There's a lot more to it, but it's neat stuff. And I worked on some other programs that were fielded, one for the artillery command and control when I was in the Army. So that's my spiel on West Point. If you want to contact me and you haven't already picked up a business card from me, and it doesn't matter if you're not in Orange County, you can give me a call and I can link you up with the LA County rep that I work with and I work for. His name is Pat O'Doul. But he and I share, sometimes I'll do interviews for him, he'll do interviews for me by county. So we try to get that done. And I'll be out at the table for about a half hour, be glad to answer any questions. Just give me about 5 minutes to power down my laptop and that. So are there any questions from you here? You're all ready to sign up. What I can tell you in industry, if you go to the academy and you graduate as a second lieutenant, you'll have more financial responsibility and responsibility for people than your peers will coming out of other universities. Because in industry, in the defense industry, it took about 10 years for a young engineer to begin to be recognized. That's not so in the military. You're expected to take responsibility and accountability. And you'll carry that on through your career in the military. And it also carries over afterwards. When we would get resumes for filling positions, if we had academy graduates, and it didn't matter which academy, we typically hired them because we knew they knew how to work time management, we knew they had a good education, and they knew how to work under pressure, and we knew they were leaders. And they proved themselves out as they worked for us. So the diploma for any of the academies is a good diploma to have. By the way, we're ranked #1 again as liberal arts college this year. We ranked 4th in the nation in Rhodes Scholars at 87. And we ranked #1 in 2 of the engineering disciplines in the United States. So you're going to get a well-rounded education, you're going to learn to be a leader, and that's probably the most predominant thing in serving our country. Thank you.